Welcome once again to The Lost Signals discusses games and gaming culture, a pretentious, philosophical, pedantic podcast where we focus on various aspects of video games as well as other issues and topics within gaming in general.
Hello there, and welcome back to The Lost Signals Games and Gaming Culture, and we are very, very late for an important date. I am Scott Thurlow, and I'm here with Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Life has been delayed.
And Chris Morgan.
This has all been delayed.
And Stephen Amosi.
Yeah, most of these are just a precursor to all the delays that are to come.
Indeed. And ironically, this episode itself was somewhat delayed. We pushed it back like a day and all. But as you may have gathered, we're going to discuss the delays in the game industry that seemingly are, more of them have been happening like late last year and into the early this year, 2020. So I have a couple of notes here. There were 16 delays at least that I have, probably more that I missed, and some big name ones. And it's just strange that, at least to me, that there's been so many of them. And on top of that, Ian was asking me precast, like, oh, have they said why? For the most part, not really. It's like, hey, many of the studios put out some blanket statement, like, in order to have the best experience for you as a player, we need more time, and then we're pushing this game back to whatever. So I don't know, I just found it interesting and just figured we'd cover it real quickly, briefly, since it has been happening, and that's something I wanted to talk about. So if you guys have anything to add before I start, like, just basically going down the list.
I do have an in-depth discussion I want to do about the nature of video gaming and maybe hypothesize something.
Okay.
But that could be done after you go through your list.
Okay, no problem.
And I just real quick, I think I would say that if you think this is a lot of delays, just wait. The next 6 months are going to be crazy, or as everyone knows, we're in the middle of a pandemic at the moment. So
maybe, yes. We're also recording this in the midst of the pandemic and all, so be aware of that. But I do have a couple of things are related to that, Steve-O, that's true, on my list. So Chris, anything you want to mention before I jump in?
No, I mean, it's a shame that because so much TV and movies are delayed that the video games really could benefit off of this national pandemic, international pandemic,
it's sort of
global pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm saying many of the stuff, a lot of them were announced well before this was this were happening.
Well, yeah, agreed. I'm just saying that they really could have benefited by getting the shit together and not getting delayed, or having the great experience, whatever. I mean, like I said, we I think Scott and I have often talked precast in various ways that, as long as something ends up like BioShock Infinite, which was delayed, 2.5 years, which
Something
became
like
an incredible game. I'm really hoping a lot of the games we're talking about really do use that time wisely, because not always.
Well, I guess I should have opened with this, but I'll say it here. There's a famous quote, I believe it's from Miyamoto, or at least one of the original founders of Nintendo, where it's something along the lines of, a rush game will be bad forever, delayed game will be good if you delay it. You know what I mean? It's the general idea is that. So I guess,
Duke Nukem
Forever, Development Hell, which is a different episode that we'll be doing later on in the season. So the earliest ones, there were 3 games, and they were all under Ubisoft's banner that, at least 2 of them, I was pretty enthusiastic, excited about. Gods and Monsters, Watch Dogs Legion, which is the 3rd Watch Dogs entry, and the Rainbow Six Quarantine, which is Rainbow Six, whatever. I don't care about it, but I know it has a big fan base. All of them were delayed from late last year, either from February or now at a TVA date. They don't even have a new date for them. They were supposed to come out, at least one of them, in November of 19. So I thought that was strange. And again, they offered no real explanation. They're like, yep, we're delaying this stuff. We'll let you know when it's out. And everyone's like, okay, I guess. That's all we're going to know. That's all we have, right? Something that just came out, I mentioned it on Top Games, Doom Eternal came out last Friday, right? But it was supposed to come out in fucking November of 19, for the holiday season.
So this is an interesting one. And the same with Animal Crossing.
Yep, exactly.
I'm going to say, I think this worked out for both of these games. This delay is perfect for them. They sold so many more copies of these games than I think they would have. Well, everybody's talking about video games, talking about Doom and Animal Crossing right now.
Sure. So it was like, very quickly, it was a funny, like, all the fans of each, they both were like supporting each other. Like, there was like a lot of funny crossover memes. Well, like, there's two huge AAA franchises. We're going to sell like hotcakes anyway. Now, maybe they sold even more because of that, Steve-O,
but actually, the video game industry has been booming because people are locked in at home.
Sure. I mean, my funny joke is, of course, my hobby happened to be the best choice ever for this circumstance because it doesn't really affect me. Like, hey, I can play a million games. Those are just two of the big ones that happened to be delayed from late last year into the same date of 2020 and sold very well. Another big one was Last of Us 2. Was supposed to come out in February, is now going to be at the end of May. I know like a lot of people are waiting on that one. Like it's a big touted follow-up. Now, of course, I have my issues in the sense of Last of Us, but it's still a good game, and I expect this one to be pretty good too. Just maybe my expectations are a little lower than most. Cyberpunk is another probably like of the big ones. Was supposed to come out in April. It is now pushed to September of this year, which I'm personally fine with. Like, again, I trust CD Projekt Red. I'll always say that. And it's kind of helpful, at least personally to me, because it opens up my schedule a bit. I don't have to cram it in with all the stuff that comes out in like Q1. But I'm just saying it's a big anticipated, looking forward to game that a lot of people are waiting for. So it did get pushed back. What else? Iron Man VR. I don't know if anybody cares about that, but it was also delayed.
Well, this is interesting because Alex just came out, right? Half-Life Alex just came out, and that wasn't delayed, right? I believe that came out on schedule, and people are giving it great reviews. So maybe Iron Man will use the time to make their game better. Maybe we'll see.
Possibly.
This is such a short delay, though, right? A couple months.
Yeah. So, well, again, like a lot of them were weird. Like not weird, but they happen to have the same one. So similar to Last of Us, it was delayed from February to May of 2020, like a couple of months. But it was the same time frame. One you might like, Steve-O, is the FF7 remake got pushed back just a month, but it still got back.
Just played the demo. It actually is looking pretty good.
That was pretty cool for sure. Another, so Marvel's Avengers, which is not just Iron Man, it's like, I guess it's supposed to be a live service-ish game, but featuring all the Avengers and so forth, and like that world got pushed back from May to September, almost similar to Cyberpunk. Chris, is one for you and me. Dying Light 2, which we both quite liked the first one. I was very excited. I'm like, oh, and Chris Avellone, one of my favorite industry writers, is working on it. But it got recently said, oh, it's supposed to come out in spring of 20. Now it's slated to, in quotes, indefinite time frame. Like, they didn't even have a new time frame.
So I hope it doesn't go the route of Dead Island 2.
Yeah, exactly. Which is still that I don't even have that because it's not even delayed. It's just in development hell. But now Dying is all sort of set for Q1, Q2-ish. And now it's like, oh, again, they didn't really offer much explanation or reasoning as to what was the problem, why they had to delay it. But it is now indefinitely delayed.
Well, I mean, the thing about, since you mentioned Dying Light, I just want to make mention, because that was the one that I've actually been waiting for, because Dying Light I thought was an improvement in so many ways over Dead Island.
Yes,
I think we both agreed the main story of the first one wasn't as tight as the side missions were awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
The ending really kind of sucked gameplay-wise and story-wise.
Yep.
And the DLC, which was better overall as a story, had that nihilistic ending for nihilistic ending's sake, which I was kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
So now that you said that they had a really good writer on this one, I was really looking forward to Dying Light 2, because in a world that is saturated with zombie culture to the point where I'm like, I was actually really, really looking forward to Dying Light 2. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I want to see what he can do with it. Chris Avellone, if you don't know him, like anyone out there, look him up. He worked on the original Fallouts. He worked on New Vegas, like a lot of stuff, a lot of In Exile stuff. He was part of them for a bit. But yeah, he's one of the best writers in the industry, at least to me. I think he worked in Outer Worlds, maybe not, but he just works on a lot of stuff, and his writing is always fantastic. So it was. All
you got to say is New Vegas to me, and I'm like, okay, sold. I'll play any game he writes.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, one of the selling points for me for Dying Light 2, I was like, I'm like, oh shit, they got Chris to write it? Like, hell yeah, now I'm on board. So, and speaking of Outer Worlds, I guess I'll lump this all. This is like virus-caused delayed or pandemic delays is that once it started like picking up traction in a sense, they delayed the Outer Worlds switch to port, or the port to Switch. So if anybody wants to check it out but has only a Switch, sorry, it's delayed. You're not going to be able to play it. But do play it when it does come out, because Outer Worlds, at this point, spoiler, it was my #1 game of the year and also Ian's. So, and a couple more, a little bit similar to Dying Light is they're doing a sequel to Vampire Bloodlines, which is a kind of a cult classic PC game based on the White Wolf world, like the vampire world, the Masquerade world, from like 2006. So it's supposed to like, it's a direct sequel, but you know, modern gen graphics, modern gen techniques, and so forth. Many people were looking forward to that. In October of last year, it was delayed from Q1 of this year to quote, later in the year, with no definite date and no real reasoning other than we need more time to give you the best experience, blah, 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 blah. So like that kind of sucks. I was looking forward to that as well. And sort of a tie into Doom a bit, Steve-O, you might like this. John Romero and Brenda have their own studio, right? Mm-hmm. Romero Games. And they're supposed to be doing something called Empire's Sin, which you guys might like as well. It's basically sort of XCOM style, but with Mafia, like 19... It's like Mafia style, like you upgrade your goons, and it's like tactical, like turn-based battles and stuff. That looks really fucking cool. Also,
interesting.
Yeah, supposed to come out in spring of this year. Now it's pushed again, just fall, some indefinite time in fall of 2020.
Hopefully you have to take a rocket launcher and shoot his head at some point.
Or the main boss is just a big Mafia guy with his face, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah. So then, those are just like some of the just ones going down my list. Now I have two specific instances I want to talk about a bit more in depth, and then I'll turn it over to you for your theory. So the first one is, rewind real quick. Virus-related things. So not games per se, but GDC was called off entirely because of it. Sure, I get it. It's a big conference, people coming in from all parts of the world. So they called that off. It's supposed to be, it was supposed to be last week, as of today's date in March. And they're rescheduling it. And E3 was also canceled completely. Many people conjecture that last year might have been the last E3 ever, because many other factors are surrounding like what E3 has become and like what it means and how people react to it. So might be episode, but yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was gonna say. Like E3 canceled, which was scheduled for June, right?
Yep.
And like, yeah, we might still be dealing with stuff in June. And it might have been canceled anyway, but they canceled it very early. And yes. I think a lot of it's because they had no fucking vendors, no good vendors there.
Yeah, no,
like,
they had troubles with like their marketing firm, like all this stuff. Like I said, it might be its own episode, but I'm just saying within all the time frame of all this, they're like, yep, E3's off. Okay, bye.
They're like, whew, we don't have to fucking do this for no reason.
Yeah. All right, so here's two more like at least specific ones, kind of. So Ian and I put Terminator Resistance on our Game of the Year list, but then, like yesterday, we were just bullshitting, and apparently it was delayed as well, but only in certain regions. Like it came out in Europe or something. Yeah, the North American console version was delayed twice in December of 2019, like within a week, and then it finally came out on January 7th, 2020, which is like 2 months after, like a month after or a month before I bought it on sale, like for cheap. So I didn't know that at all until I looked it up real quick, because I was like, what are you talking about, E? Like it came out like, he's like, no, it came out this and that. And we're like, oh, we're sort of both right because of the weird delay situation on it.
Yes, we lied on our top list. It should have been in the next
Technically, it might make next year's list, but I didn't until I was like, double checking my research.
How high up was that on yours, guys?
So it was on my mid-tier, number 2, I believe, on my mid-tier.
Like honorable?
Well, no, not even that. Below honorable, like mid-tier. Yeah, I did a new category.
I liked it quite a bit. It's okay gameplay, but actually narratively, it fits into the. It only takes the first and second movie as canon.
As you should.
And actually, it's a close time. It's one of the best sequels to Terminator 2 I've ever seen.
Awesome. Yeah, I was interested in it. I was thinking about getting it, but I wasn't sure. Like I watched you play for a couple minutes, I think, Scott, and I was like, this looks okay. Yeah. Like it looks like older graphics, not like an older gen, but like older PS4 graphics. You know.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's worth the 20 hours, whatever it is.
Yeah, especially for $15 for what it is. Like, it was worth it. But yeah, technically, it was released from this year, at least in North America. So, anyways, and finally, this is my own personal story. I've told you guys there was a game called Moons of Madness. Was for PC, Lovecraft style walking sim. You're on Mars and Lovecraft. Like, that sounds great, up my alley. They were supposed to put it of early January or like mid to late January 2020. I had it pre-ordered on my PS and I had like a slight discount when I did that. Literal days, like 3 days before the January release date, there was an announcement. I logged on. It was like, this product is being refunded and recalled. You will get your funds back and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what the fuck? I've never even seen that. So they gave me the money back for it. And I checked out some more like sites and stuff. Like, yeah, again, developers like, hey, in order to bring you blah, 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 the blanket statement applied here. So it was pushed back to March 24th, which was about 2 days ago at this point. But what the weirdest thing was to me is something still downloaded. I had the icon on my wall of games on PS4, like 8 gigs, 10 gigs of something downloaded the day after they recalled it and refunded it. So it sat there locked. I tried to click on it every time. I was like, go to the PlayStation Store to access it. Okay, and can't find it, unavailable. Like, it sat there forever like that. So I took the money. I bought some other game. I bought Kentucky Route Zero with it, which is a great game. People should check that out. So anyways, it got closer and closer to the release date in March, and no news, no updates. Finally, that day, 2 days ago on Tuesday, yeah, sure enough, it was there. I had to buy it again because they gave me the money back.
Right.
Now, an extra $5. So all it did was like, it just unlocked the thing. Like, the game was in fact there. Like, I don't even know what they patched or fixed, if anything, because the original, like, source code essentially downloaded on my PS4 in January. It was super fucking strange. I've never seen anything like that.
Hold on. So it was an extra $5, you said?
Only because I pre-ordered it with a discount, but they gave me that money back.
That's obviously why they did it. Get that extra $5.
Yeah, so we pre-order, so like we can make an extra.
I don't know.
We should have charged $500.
Like, there's no discount after that. So like, yeah, technically, yeah, I'm saying like, it's not like they jit me on it per se, like kind of, but they did give me the refund for the pre-order discount that I originally paid. And then when it finally dropped, I had to pay like the actual price, which wasn't that much more, but it was more. So I haven't even started yet, but all I'm saying is a very odd situation and sort of like encapsulated to me, like that was the weirdest delay out of all the many delays that happened this year and possibly more. I'm sure there's a few I missed. Those are just the big ones, that the shit that I was tangentially and or heavily interested in. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
that. And I think I will turn it over to E now because he would like to turn it to a different angle.
So if you take, I'm interested in video games as an art form in our capitalist system. So oftentimes movies will be delayed not to compete with other releases, but I don't know if video games have reached that point yet. I'm sure that's happened.
Only to a small degree, but not as much as movies at all.
Now, there has been in the past a push to publish. You have this time to release your game, no matter what, especially with the idea of being able to patch the internet.
Yeah.
Like Bethesda's notorious for that.
Yep,
release the game when we said we're going to release it, and we'll fix it later. Fix it afterwards.
Yeah, don't play it for like a month and then wait for the patch.
I'm hoping that this is a transition in the medium of the backlash against unpatched games. Making them want to, like, it's evolved to a point where gaming is respected. Our people are looking forward to playing games and would rather get a complete game out versus
some broken, glitchy, buggy shit.
Or at least we said it's coming out then, but it's not finished yet, and people will respect that. I'm hoping that that's the optimistic viewpoint of it. But I'm hoping that that's what the outcome or the reason for this is.
Yeah, how we might move forward. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I completely agree. I hope that's the case where it's like, I'd rather see games delayed because some, suit put a date on it that was unrealistic, and they said, and the developers came back and said, we need more time, than put out the game and it works like shit and then patch it. Like, it's the old saying of like, you only get one first impression.
Yeah, like
right?
I said,
like
a bad game is bad forever. A rush game is bad.
Yeah,
eventually be good. So.
Exactly. Fallout 78, was that what it was?
76.
76 was like got destroyed itself because of that, and they kept making it worse, but like granted, but like
It didn't do us any favors, but it still was that anyways.
That was a game that was developed and released with a lot of goodwill, and it destroyed all that goodwill by being buggy and not working for the people that were trying to play it. And if game developers are trying to combat that now, realizing it's bad business strategy, that would be awesome.
The backlash, the profit loss isn't worth it. Like the negative PR potentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I'm going to do like that. I think it has been, let's say in the past decade, 10 years, more respected, and therefore like it should be held to a similar standard at least. And that also ties into the rushing thing, where suit publishers like get it done, get it out. That means the studio then has to crunch and has another big negative impact on the employees and people working the game. Which again, crunch is another topic that I would like to cover in full in a different episode. But it certainly is relevant and related to this issue as well.
One of the interesting aspects, though, is the growth of technology. If you do, I think Duke Nukem Forever is a great example of this.
Yeah.
You delay too long seeking perfection. The growth of technology will pass you past.
Beyond, yeah.
So all of a sudden you have to restart everything in order.
Half-Life 3.
Right? Yeah. So there is a balance to the idea of delaying too much, but not publishing something with flaws at that moment.
Yeah, there certainly is a happy middle ground between putting out like an unfinished and clearly needing a patch game and waiting 10 years to put out a game that's subpar by the time because everything else has moved beyond it. So yeah, it's funny but also interesting and valid point.
I've got one quick question before we end, but Chris, do you have anything else to say about that?
No, my whole point is I think you guys over the last couple of years, you guys have probably played more video games than I have, but I've been kind of letting you guys vet a lot of the games.
We're the fucking canaries, I got you.
No, well, because I'm still trying to get this birthday present of mine to work. But the thing is, I keep going back. I mean, this is indicative since we started the podcast. I keep going back to the same games because these are the gold standards, and I keep bringing up when it comes to delay games, BioShock Infinite, because you were talking BioShock for a long time, and Beth just brought it home one day and it's like, here, I thought you'd like this, and it's one of the greatest games. We've had our BioShock up, and Scott's got the tattoo, and BioShock 2 sucked. I played it in the afternoon, and I just didn't really care.
It was just weak, forgettable.
Yeah, but it was forgettable. That was the worst part about it. It was not even that it was bad. It was just there. And BioShock Infinite was delayed, but it was an incredible game and had one of the best DLCs I've ever played. And to me, it was like narratively, I mean, gameplay was great. Don't get me wrong, the gameplay was great. But narratively, it was phenomenal. I mean, just an incredible closed time loop, just absolutely phenomenal. And my problem is with a lot of games is when a lot of games, like as we were saying before, Dying Light, really looking forward to it, really enjoying. Both games I thought had a not great ending. And to me, it's just like if you're going to delay a game, take your fucking time and make it a good game. Don't just vomit the shit out. Because like I wanted to play Outer Worlds for a long time. Played Outer Worlds, great. You guys recommended Plague Tale, had a kid on it. It was a companion. It was an escort mission, which generally in games to me is like a dead end, and it was great. So my whole thing is make the wait worthwhile, and because movies get delayed for various reasons, and sometimes it's, as one of you guys said, it's just because of the competition. They're whoever reviewed that the reshoots made the movie still suck, so let's throw it in January or whatever. So when it comes to these things, it's just like I really, really, really want them to focus on story, make the good. You've got a game plan, and you get that great. Make the story worthwhile. Make it worth the wait. I am willing to wait for anything that's worth waiting for.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, I think that you said it well, that I feel it's part of the maturation of the medium itself, in that it's more respected as an art form. It's not just we're going to pump it out and you buy what we say you buy, which I feel is what Atari crashing that.
I see what you mean. And
now
I think
it's more of that generation has grown up with video games and wants to produce art with the video games, and
not just mass produce a product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at like the AAA games, something like the Marvel universe, which has become hit or miss at this point, and then you have like the AA games, which all acquaint to, which I guess was Plague Tale and like Outer Worlds, to something like A24, which we always champion. I'm much more interested in these smaller games whose graphics may not be as spectacular. They're great, don't get me wrong. They may not be as spectacular as a AAA game, but the stories are far, far superior. There's a lot of, it sounds like there's a lot of good ideas going into this thing, a lot of creativity going into this thing. I mean, these games actually have something to say, rather than, I think for a while, Ubisoft was just like releasing like AC games every like November, just because
they got stuck into a rut and didn't do it. So
so let them take their time. Yeah. Might I suggest don't just vomit this shit out as our next T-shirt, and also I just want to ask you guys, like, other than the ones we've already mentioned, do you remember like any big delays in the history of video games that were like a big thing? Like I was trying to rack my brain for them, but I couldn't come up with much other than the ones that like BioShock Infinite. You mentioned Duke Nukem, which is like more. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to answer. So it wasn't as much, but The Witcher 3 was delayed twice. A lot of people probably don't remember that. So like while it may be few and far between, and like again, I think it does tie into the maturation angle, where since it's been becoming more respected and people will generally be okay with, take your time, make a good piece of art, don't release a good piece of art and also a functioning piece of software at once, because that's basically what games usually are. So yeah, I think that there probably wasn't as many, or if there were, Steve, like nobody cared as much.
Well, I mean, maybe that's the point. Like, right, if a game's good enough, you don't care if it was delayed at some point.
I think part of it was that back in like the SNES and Genesis era, and NES even, you had a lot of movie tie-ins as games with a big sellers.
Yeah, true.
So there was a date when they needed to get out to match up with the movie coming out. Versus nowadays, that's video game like the Spider-Man game that came out, which is completely isolated. It didn't matter at all whether the movie was coming out at the time. It's an IP that sells regardless. Or like the Avengers game, as you just pointed out, is like the Marvel brand has grown so much that the
doesn't
game
need
to be timed in with the release.
Yeah, it's not coming out anywhere near the date of the movie. Yeah.
So that might be also a part of that.
I think that's also a factor that's worth considering for sure. Like maybe not as often like at the forefront, but I think it certainly is there in the mix, and that's a very good point. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much it. I don't have much more to add. I just thought it was like interesting to me, like that there were seemingly so many more delays, and maybe just delve into a bit. And like we just said, it is always going to be worth it, I think, to delay your game to make it good rather than rush it out. Like perhaps I'll tie it in. Plug for future episode about crunch. E.T., the original Atari game, possibly the most famous example of crunch ever, maybe one of the first examples of it. And look how that turned out in a second. So yes, if any developers are out there listening, please take the time to make your games correctly, properly, and awesome, and try to, if you're being pressured from above, try to make the point that, again, to keep it all tied, bookend it, a delayed game will be good, a rush game will always be bad, and the first impression is going to matter.
And correct me if I'm wrong, one more thing to say, and you and Beth can probably answer this better than I could. They basically, if you played, because Beth and I are huge fans of the Mass Effect trilogy, we are even huge defenders of the ending of it, which we've only found one other person online that agrees with us. No, but the thing is, each one of us throughout we all each took a different path in the ending, and we could argue it, and we all could see each other's points. But the thing is, it's just like, Andromeda, I believe, was delayed a little bit, but they decided to go halfway through with Anthem. So you do hit a point in Mass Effect Andromeda where you realize that BioWare, is it BioWare?
Yep.
Decided they just kind of gave up on it and went with Anthem, and then Anthem, long time.
Yeah, look how that turned out as well.
Yeah, and then apparently that was a delay game for a multiplayer, but actually that turned out to be a flop too. So you had two games people waited for, and both of them ended up being mediocre.
Actually, interesting point. There was a trend to create these games that would build over time, and that has kind of failed as a model.
Yeah,
that's why they're moving towards creating a product complete at the moment it's released.
Yes, also good segue, or not segue, but plug. Like, I want to do games as service, and also on that angle. But it's again relevant to general topic here as well. So yeah, that in mind, and hopefully you won't see too many more delays. I have a huge list of firm dates that I keep updated, so I'm keeping an eye on all that. But so far, those are the big ones. Like I said, Moons of Madness was a very strange situation. And if anyone else experienced it, let me know, because I thought it was ridiculous.
Wait, Scott, could you repeat what you just said? The transmission was breaking up.
I just said, wrapping up, but Moons of Madness was the most ridiculous situation I've ever experienced in my life. And if anyone else out there has had something like it, drop a comment, let me know, because I found it ludicrous. But that's about it, about our thoughts on delays and just our sort of general coverage of the ones that have happened late last year into early this year. So of course we are always on time. I've been here with Stephen Amosi. Gotta say something.
Goodbye.
Chris Morgan.
Nah, we'll get to you. We don't delay even in the wake of a plague.
And Jonathan Ian Manzu.
Stephen, there are monsters coming up behind you. I just wanted to warn you for.
Oh no! Thank you, Clem Fandango.
It's kind of a delayed attack, but
yes. Very nice. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Steve-O dodges demons, and thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Thank you for joining the Lost Signals Games and Gaming Culture. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows and more, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.